Shalom, everybody. As you know, I often write about the danger of the BDS movement. And that's what I want to talk about today. It has officially been going on for 16 years now. It was started by Mahmoud Abbas, the current leader of the Palestinian Authority, and Omar Barghouti in 2005. Abbas and Barghouti did not invent the boycott of Jewish people, products, or inventions. They simply revived an age-old practice, repackaged it, that was used in Europe in the 1930s. In my research and writing and teaching about BDS, I usually present a few ideas on how to fight that anti-Semitic concept. I have told people repeatedly that one of the best ways to fight BDS is to go to their own website and buy and support the very products and companies that they list as who should be boycotted. They did all the legwork for us, so let's use their list and support who they say we should not support. That's easy. But another way to fight BDS, and a very powerful one at that, is to educate those who are being fooled by its social justice agenda. We need to be informed about the real issue plaguing the Middle East, and we need to be able to debunk the Palestinian narrative built on a false premise. Israel is not an apartheid state. It is the safest, most productive place for Arabs to live in and work from. Israel is not committing ethnic cleansing, since there are many more Arabs within the land today than there were prior to 1948, when it was reborn as a modern nation. Israel is not killing Palestinians indiscriminately, but carefully warning Gaza civilians about upcoming attacks on sites that Hamas specifically selected for their civilian population, such as schools and hospitals. Big difference here. Now, allow me to introduce you to one more way to fight BDS. Instead of just buying what BDS proponents say we should boycott, which is definitely a great start to counter BDS. I'm not saying stop doing that, but we should also seriously consider boycotting the boycotters. The principle is rather simple. Whichever company, organization, or personality supports the boycott, divestment, and sanction movement against Israel and the Jewish people should in turn be boycotted by those of us who support Israel's right to exist. It is simple in theory, but requires three things: sacrifice, commitment, and integrity. Keep in mind that we should always pass through everything through the very helpful the filter of the 3D test, which was established a few years ago by Russian refusnik and now in charge of immigration to Israel, Nathan Sharansky. He posits that anti-Semitism can be defined by any combination of the 3Ds: demonization, double standard, and delegitimization. He explains, and I quote, "We must be clear and outspoken in exposing the new anti-Semitism. I believe that we can apply a simple test. I call it the 3D test, to help us distinguish legitimate criticism of Israel from anti-Semitism. The first D is the test of demonization. When the Jewish state is being demonized, when Israel's actions are blown out of all sensible proportion, when comparisons are made between Israelis and Nazis and between Palestinian refugee camps and Auschwitz, this is anti-Semitism, not legitimate criticism of Israel. The second D is the test of double standards. When criticism of Israel is applied selectively, when Israel is singled out by the United Nations for human rights abuses, while the behavior of known and major abusers such as China, Iran, Cuba, and Syria is ignored, when Israel's Magen David Adom, alone among the world's ambulance services, is denied admission to the International Red Cross, this is anti-Semitism. The third D is the test of delegitimization, when Israel's fundamental right to exist is denied alone among all peoples in the world. This is also anti-Semitism." Close quote. Wow, what a powerful quote. I find the 3Ds of Nathan Sharansky to be very helpful, very clear, and very helpful in understanding the difference between legitimate criticism and anti-Semitism. So now, let's look at the need for what I mentioned earlier: sacrifice, commitment, and integrity. Sacrifice. So let's talk about sacrifice. We all have a long list of products, companies, personalities that we support and enjoy. Imagine finding out that your favorite actor or musician supports BDS and shows some serious signs of being anti-Semitic. Maybe your favorite product that you have been buying for years is making the wrong choices about boycotting Israel. Now you have to decide, should you look the other way, or should you stop sending them your money? This is not a trick question, because I constantly ask myself the same question, and unfortunately, more and more recently. This is a real question. Take, for instance, the recent decision by Ben & Jerry's ice cream to stop selling their ice cream to the Israeli settlements in Judea and Samaria, improperly labeled the West Bank, or all of Israel if they could. They actually would want to stop selling in all of Israel. It is entirely within their rights to do so. We have to realize that. But it is also entirely within ours to stop buying Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Is it possible to say that it is also our duty as Bible-believing followers of Yeshua and supporters of Israel to defund Ben & Jerry, to use a term that everybody can relate to lately? Now, apply that principle to other areas in your own life where BDS is infringing, and we can start making an impact by using the boycott principle where justified. I personally stopped eating their products last year when that went crazy against the police, and I kept it private. I didn't tell anybody, but I feel that now is the time to start spending our money more wisely. I could give you more examples of who to boycott, but I don't want to do unnecessarily or be accused of character assassination by those who might miss my point. Instead, I will invite any of you listening to do this, to go to Google and just Google a specific brand, organization, or personality with next to it the word boycott or BDS and see the results. It is not complicated for anyone to find out who is against Israel and who is supporting Israel. When in doubt, contact me privately and I will help you figure it out. But all this requires is commitment on our part, a little research. It requires commitment. So let's talk about commitment for a minute. Now that you have decided to boycott a product or personality or anything, you have to remain committed to that boycott, at least until they show that they have revised or changed their position. We cannot boycott a TV channel on Monday through Friday, but look the other way on weekends because our favorite show is running at that time. We cannot boycott an actor or actress on some movies, but not others because they're part of our favorite movie list. We cannot boycott Ben & Jerry's ice cream except for one flavor because we just cannot live without it. I get it. It would be a lot easier to boycott a brand of water and switch to another than to sacrifice and stop eating our favorite ice cream. Hey, I'm with you. We either boycott or we don't, but there is not such a thing as partial boycott. Once we commit, we commit. I have boycotted every single movie of one of my all-time favorite directors since 1988, when he decided to direct a very blasphemous and offensive movie graphically portraying Yeshua in terrible sexual situations. He has since come up with many movies that I would have loved to watch because I really like his style, but I am committed. Think before you commit. And don't commit because you will need to proceed with integrity. So don't commit just to commit. Commit because if you commit, you have to have integrity. Let's talk about integrity for a second. Remember, we have to include that. A good definition of integrity from the dictionary is, and I quote, firm adherence to a code of especially moral or artistic values, or an unimpaired condition, or the quality or state of being complete or undivided. Integrity has to do with being consistent according to a set of set values. Taking it to an extreme, we could argue that Hitler had integrity because he was very consistent in following his code of ethics or values, which happened to be the destruction of all Jews at any cost. From that perspective, he had integrity because he was consistent. To be fair, this is not the way we think of integrity today. It is more related to morality or character. The point of integrity is that once we make a decision based on what we think is best course of action, we have to be consistent. When I look at those who support and promote BDS, I see a lot of hypocrisy. They're willing to sacrifice for what doesn't really hurt them, but they absolutely will not boycott what they cannot live without. Let us not be too quick to judge because we might be partially guilty of the same at times. The idea is that if you accuse Israel of being an occupier, a colonizer, an apartheid state, and that you call for its complete boycott, then it should be a complete boycott. Do what you say. Make your words mean a value. It's easy for anyone to stop buying Jaffa oranges or even Sabra hummus, but it's a different story to refrain from using technology that was invented or co-invented by Israelis, like cell phone technology, thumb drives, or even Intel chip computers. Think about that. Looking at sacrifice, commitment, and integrity, we all come to the realization that boycotting is easier said than done. Let the BDS promoters be inconsistent, hypocritical, and without integrity. But for those of us who claim to love Israel and the Jewish people, the time has come to sacrifice and boycott the boycotters. If you decide to do so, why don't you let your Jewish community leaders and synagogues know that you are boycotting the boycotters? That is, of course, after you have taken a minute to email the organization or product that you are boycotting to let them know that they are losing customers like yourself and why they are. It is time to speak up. It is time to act. And I think it is time to stop eating Ben & Jerry's ice cream. God bless you. Hey, if you like my videos, if they make a difference, if you learn something, consider subscribing and hitting the little notification bell, and of course giving me a thumbs up. It really helps giving us exposure so I can share my teaching with more people. So please subscribe. Thank you.